So my name is Lejuwaan. I'm the co-founder of futurism.com, and we're a media company that writes about advancements in science and technology. And every week we put out 65 articles, 40 videos, and 7 infographics. So I have a really big bird's eye view about what's coming. And today I'm here to talk to you about what's most exciting me in that entire space of new coming tech. And surprisingly, it's not artificial intelligence or gene editing with CRISPR or self-driving cars or 3D printing. It's, as he said, augmented and virtual reality. We're on the cusp of a new age thanks to advancements in these technologies. And this is far beyond video games or immersive movies or 360 video. It's far bigger than the Google Cardboards that some of you might have tried already. This is beyond that of the internet in terms of how it's going to change the world. We're going to see a new world of education, of collaboration, and experience. And this shift will effectively make us superhuman. So let's jump right into it and talk about virtual reality. How many of you, with a show of hands, have tried an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive? Okay, so some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. For the rest of you, we're going to catch you up, so no worries. So we tried to do VR in the 80s and 90s, as you can see on the screen here, and we didn't do too well. We didn't do well at all. Right now, we're at a perfect place for VR because we finally have the combination of amazing 3D graphics and screen resolution and processing power so that you don't put on one of these headsets and immediately get nauseous. It's also good enough to make it really realistic. And so let's just show you really quick how far we've come. So we've come pretty far. The first thing that you have to know about virtual reality is that it doesn't need to look real to feel real. A lot of what you just saw was very cartoonish, very video gamey, but the trick is that if you can just fool one of your senses, your brain will make it real for you. And right now we're already fooling 2 senses. So if you look left in the virtual world and the screen or the world that you're in follows along with you to the left, that's a visual cue that what you're looking at is real. And if you have headphones in, and you look to the right side at a sound that's coming from over there, and the sound adjusts accordingly and hits both of your ears, that's another cue that what you're looking at is real. And the effect of that is that you can be in an experience that looks very cartoonish and have it feel scarily real. And one fantastic example of this is called Richie's Plank Experience, and it's my favorite thing to show first-time VR people because it scares the pants off of them. So are you guys afraid of heights at all? You'll enjoy this. So in this experience, you start off at the base of a skyscraper, and you turn around, and there's an elevator. And as you can see, it warns you to be wary if you have any heart conditions. And you go into the elevator. There's 4 buttons on the right side, and the top one just says the plank. So you use your controller to tap that button. The doors close, and you start to go up. And there's a crack just large enough in the door for you to see how high you're going. And then, as you can see, when it opens up, there's only one thing between you and certain death, and that's a thin wooden plank. And the first time I did this, it took me roughly 30 seconds of just inching really, really slowly out there till I got to the edge of the plank. And then I stood there for another 2 minutes trying to convince myself to jump off. And I knew mentally that I was just in my office. I was not on top of any building. You know, it doesn't look very scary on a 2D screen as you're seeing, but I couldn't do it. There's like this whole mental gymnastic of trying to rationalize 2 different realities. My brain was saying, you know, just in case this is real, let's just not test it. Like, just in case. And this wasn't just me. I've shown this to a ton of people, and most people can't jump off. It's a hyper-realistic experience. And you actually can fall off. Yeah. And what's interesting about VR is that deacceleration is something that game developers have to be careful of, because as soon as you hit that ground and you don't feel yourself hit the ground, your stomach compensates. So we're working on that. So the key part there is that we've reached a point where VR feels real. What this makes it good for is practicing things that maybe you would have never otherwise tried, or things that you want to get better at in the real world. And one example of this is practicing a speech that maybe you'd be nervous for and need to be practicing for 2 weeks ahead of time. It'd be a lot better if you could load up a virtual version of that and even have a countdown in front of you and be able to load up your slides. And you can make this even more interesting if you had a headset like Connor's headset feeding biometric data into the game. And then if you're getting a little bit nervous and your heart rate is increasing, you could have a few people in the front row get up and give you a little standing ovation and get your confidence back up. It could also be useful if you have a big meeting where you're going to be pitching your company to investors. You could load up a conference room and see the woman taking notes in the right corner. Some good details in there. Or I could use this to practice going up to a beautiful woman and asking for a phone number, even the mother of dragons, possibly. And the really interesting thing about virtual reality that makes it different from media platforms before it, like video games and the internet, is that because of this safe place that it creates for you to practice, it could actually make you more socially capable. So you could take those skills, cultivate them in the virtual world, and then go out and use them in the real world. But this is just one side of virtual reality. There's also the flip side, where it helps you step outside of yourself. Take a look at this photo. This is one of the most powerful photos that I've ever seen. And I feel like a lot of that power is taken away by the fact that it's a 2D image that really puts a lot of distance between you and the subject, the little boy in that photo. Even now, you're 50 feet or so away from this screen, and even if you were standing right next to it, you'd still feel that distance. You would know that this boy is thousands of miles away from you. Virtual reality flips that on its head. If this same photograph was shot in 360 video, you could don a virtual reality headset and step into that scene. You could be standing between the boy and the vulture. You could look up and see the sun shining on you. Even worse, or even better, you could be the boy. You could be crouching on the ground and turn around and see the vulture, walking up behind you. And this would be just so much more visceral of an experience. One amazing example of this is a film put out by a VR media agency called Within. And Within was co-founded by a man named Chris Milk, who's done 2 TED Talks on the relationship between empathy and virtual reality. But the video is called The Displaced, and it puts you inside the lives of some children whose homes have been displaced by conflict and war. I'll let the video speak for itself.
Ora doy ma chalda barwe soin ayiri la ne ne nyang tongwan ngai ngai chang nyang molia monanga ma tene ta ko de ngana rama te kamai ai ro mi la ruang ni ma le wa kadang pin ke ro da كل يوم في الساعة 4 لا أروح أشتغل.
لحظة شوي يا بنتي يا بنتي. خليك ازيحك، اعطيني هذا الموضوع، وين هذا؟ اعطيني.
كنت عايشة بسوريا وبعدين صارت الحرب. احنا هلا بلبنان وعم ننتظر. اللبنانية ما بيحبون ومش منها.
I see this as a similar shift to when the first imagery of war was shown to the American public during Vietnam. It took something that was so far away, so remote, that it couldn't possibly be understood, and just put it right in front of the face of the public and led to some of the first major peace protests. This changed the public's perception of war. And VR is going to do this for war and just so many other social issues that need more attention given to them. But, all right, so now we have some new skills. We can ask out Khaleesi, and we've also gained some empathy. We've learned to step into the shoes of others. So now let's take off our virtual reality goggles and step out into the real world to use some of these skills. But the fun doesn't stop there, because we also have augmented reality. So now we can don our augmented reality contact lenses or goggles and put on some new superpowers to use.
Oh, might I have a word with you, please?
This is Magic Leap. Magic Leap is one of the forerunners in the race to put out a really high-functioning augmented reality glass. Their technology is really unique in that they actually beam photons straight into your retina to create hyper-realistic imagery overlaid on top of the real world. And as you can see, its location is environmentally aware. What you just saw briefly was that you can't actually see the bottom of their feet because they're supposed to be behind a table that's physically in the room.
We have not yet completed the mission.
So I see augmented reality as new senses that can be added to the body through the visual spectrum. One very basic example of this would be facial recognition and overlaying biographical data when you see someone that you know or that you don't know on the street. And I'm really, really bad at remembering names and faces. I'm sorry if that happens at this conference. But if I had augmented reality, I would have computers that are able to do this much better than me. In fact, they're 98% accurate right now. And you've probably experienced this if you've been on Facebook and you've had a scarily accurate recommendation for which friend you should tag in a certain photo. So imagine walking up to a friend on the street. Maybe it's an old friend, someone you haven't seen in a while. And without touching your phone or touching any buttons, you have all the information you could possibly want to know about that interaction in front of you. And you can still look at him or her at the same time while seeing this information. You can see social media information, their profile, recent status updates, recent text or email exchanges between you two, tag photos of both of you, mutual friends, events that you've been to or are going to with this person, anything that you would like to know, seamlessly available in your field of view. And AR will also be awesome for visual learning. Microsoft HoloLens, which is available now, has partnered with an elevator repair company in New York City. And this repair company has one guy that's been there for 50 years, and he knows everything there is to know about elevator repair. But there's only one of him, and there's many elevators in New York City. So they have him up in the office on Skype, and they have a bunch of other younger repairmen going out into the elevators. And he can see exactly what they're seeing thanks to them wearing HoloLens. And then, like in this video, he's able to draw drawings or arrows or any kind of instruction and tell them over the phone exactly how they should repair that elevator. Another thing AR will be amazing for is just new forms of communication and performance. So let's say, hypothetically, that I'm up here on this stage, and I'm in the end of my talk, and I'm going to make a climactic point about the future of AR, VR. It'd be really cool if all of you guys were wearing AR glasses so that I could say it and then shoot sparks up over the audience. See how that was supposed to work? Better? Or maybe I'm talking about space, and instead of having a 2D picture of the Milky Way up here, I want to drop the Milky Way on top of the entire audience, and you guys can be immersed in the Milky Way. And we can zoom in and zoom out. I can point to a planet and have it highlighted. I can move it around. And I can make the entire experience so much more immersive and information-rich for you guys as the audience. Or for a more cutesy example, maybe before I leave in the morning, I can draw a cartoon version of myself, like that, and program it to run up to my girlfriend and give her a hug when she passes the precipice of our door. And with location-based technologies that we already have today, this is completely possible. And this gets even more interesting when we do have processors in our AR goggles that are able to live edit what we're seeing in the real world. So what if I don't want to see logos ever again? I have AdBlock installed. Most of you probably do too. We could have AdBlock in the real world with AR. Or what if I just want to see cats instead? That seems like a popular thing to do. Or what if I'm trying to quit drinking Coke. It's too sugary, I don't want to drink it, and I'm addicted. So I want a visual cue every time I go to grab a Coke that I shouldn't be drinking it. Or what if that's not working, and I'm still drinking Coke even though it looks like poison, but I know that I'm really afraid of horror films. So whenever I grab a Coke, I want to have the pants scared off me. Maybe that'll work better. What about Snapchat? If we could have Snapchat filters in real life. And with AR, it wouldn't just be limited to the face. You could put an entirely new character over your entire body. So I could have a party, a costume party, where everyone chooses their own character. Ernest Hemingway, Dracula, or a bundle of grapes, if that's your thing. And they could be completely overlaid with that character. And if everyone also has headphones, we could modify the sound coming out of their voices live to make them sound more like that character too. And while this might not be a superhuman power, it'd be pretty cool. This last example is a little bit more out there, but I found it fascinating. There's some researchers at MIT that built something called a motion microscope. And what they did was take video of people standing still, and then they used computer processors to look for small microscopic changes in that video, and then they magnified those changes 100x. So what you're seeing here, the guy was just staring there, and they looked for changes in the color of his skin and magnified them. And it looked like maybe that was how he was breathing. And they compared it to his actual breathing and found it to be accurate. This is another example where the video was just a woman standing still, and they magnified movements in her face and revealed micro-expressions that would otherwise be totally invisible to the naked eye. So what could seeing information like this tell you about how a person is reacting to what you're saying to them? Could you tell what emotions they're feeling? Could you tell if they're lying to you? I'm not sure. With this one, you have to kind of run with your imagination and think about what other types of information we could overlay on our world that would otherwise never be possible to be seen. And then they took this a step further and thought, what if we put our camera behind soundproof glass and point it at a potato chip bag, and then we have someone speaking in that room? What if we magnify the changes on the potato chip bag that are coming from the vibration of the sound coming out of his voice? Could we determine what the person was saying? And it worked. They could hear it perfectly. This is actually a TED Talk. So if you find this video, it's almost a perfect recording of the person speaking, very intelligible. And then just for fun, this is one artist's imagination about what would happen if we had way too many apps installed in augmented reality.
Leon. Estoy libre de mi ira. Estoy libre de mi tristeza. Y el amor speaks for me.
Habla español. Adiós. Olá, me chamo Maria.
So hopefully it won't be that annoying, but I don't think it will be. So my major point here is that we're at the beginning of this. As we saw, most of you haven't even tried the top tier technologies that really show you what it's like to be in a virtual world. In the next 10 years, the access to this technology is going to be as ubiquitous as cell phones. In 15 years, mobile phones and computers will be more or less obsolete, because what's the point of having a screen this big or this big or this big if you can fill your entire field of view without holding anything? And then soon after that, augmented reality and virtual reality will merge and be known as one thing, because you'll have one device, whether be it contact lenses or glasses, that allow you to seamlessly transition between the real world, the augmented world, and the virtual world. And if you're one of those people that didn't raise their hand at the beginning of this, please go out and try an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive. It's going to blow your mind, because with AR, VR, seeing is believing. Thank you.